Thursday, March 28th, 2019 regular meeting of the Brisbane Planning Commission will now come to order. May I have roll call, please?
Yes, Commissioner Gomez.
Here.
Commissioner Gooding.
Here.
Commissioner Patel.
Here.
Commissioner Mackin.
Here.
And Chair Sayasan.
Here. Next item is for the adoption of the agenda. May I have a motion to adopt, please?
I'll make a motion.
And second?
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Consent calendar. Is there anyone who would like to remove an item from the consent calendar? I see no one. Can I have a motion to adopt?
I move that we adopt the consent calendar as is.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Oral communications. Is there anyone here that would like to address the commission on an item that's not on tonight's agenda? I see no one. We'll move on to written communications. There is none. So the next topic is the public hearing. This concerns a public hearing that was continued from the meeting of March 14, 2019 regarding use permit UP-10-18, and it was a permit to allow the assembly of toter carts and storage of empty toter carts within an existing approximately 35,000 square foot warehouse building on 595 Tunnel Avenue. Christine Borgi is the applicant and Recology Properties the owner. Staff, may we have a report?
Yes, thank you. This application was continued from the meeting, originally from the meeting of February 14th and then again on the March 14th. The requested use permit is for Recology to utilize the existing approximately 35,000 square foot warehouse at the rear of 595 Tunnel Avenue. This is for assembly and storage of empty toter carts. This would be in support of Recology's, existing recycling operations located to the north of Beatty Avenue. As Recology previously indicated, they began using the site for cart storage in the summer of 2017, apparently not realizing that a use permit was needed. They have since voluntarily applied for the use permit that's before the Planning Commission tonight, and the city has not undertaken enforcement action. At the Commission's meeting in February, a few issues were raised, and the Commission requested that the applicant address these further before making their decision. These included, first, elimination of toter carts that were being stored outside the proposed area of use. Recology indicated that they had received more carts than they had intended, and so a number of carts were being stored outside those rear buildings that were indicated in their application. Second is the timing for installation of a restroom for workers, and that's to meet the Bayshore Sanitary District requirements. Up to this time, they've been using a portable toilet at the site. The timing, and third, is the timing for correcting the pre-existing stormwater drainage issues to prevent water ponding on the site. Recology has since been in communication with the various city departments that have authority over the required building and grading permits to address the restroom and stormwater items. Recology has indicated that they are prepared to submit applications to the building department and to the city engineer upon use permit approval. Regarding the restroom, Recology's drawings, which they submitted for preliminary building permit review, would include a prefabricated standalone restroom that would be located along the driveway into the site and tied into the existing sewer there. It would be located behind the fence near the entrance to the site. They've indicated that they are prepared to submit this upon, as I mentioned, upon the requested use permit granting. Also, staff contacted the sanitary district again to confer on the proposed 90-day deadline that was provided in the draft condition of approval. The sanitary district indicated that they did not have concerns with that time frame, and the continued use of a portable toilet in the meantime is okay with them as a temporary measure. In regard to drainage, as indicated in the applicant's letter to staff that you have in your memo, they have met with the city engineer and are prepared to submit a grading plan to correct the stormwater ponding issue. Both the restroom and installation and the drainage repair appear very feasible within the 90-day time frames that were put forward in the conditions of approval. Recology has also removed the toter carts from the areas outside the buildings that have been proposed for this use. As an aside, earlier this week, one of the commissioners asked about storage of carts that were noticed at the Recology site at the north corner of Beatty and Tunnel Avenues to the north of this site. Staff has since been in communication with Recology, including the city manager, to touch base on this, and we are addressing that as a separate issue and looking at the historical uses there. So that is a separate issue from this. One other item that I should mention, at the last meeting, a concern was raised about whether odors from the used carts might impact people on the lumberyard site to the south. A condition of approval has been added to the draft conditions as a performance standard. That would be that Recology's operations are not to result in odors impacting neighboring sites. There are two findings for approval of this permit application that were addressed in your February 14th agenda report, and this application would meet both of those findings. So in closing, staff recommends approval of the requested use permit UP 1018, the adoption of the resolution containing the findings and conditions of approval. One note I should add to that, and I sent an email yesterday about this to the commission, is that per the Permit Streamlining Act, the Planning Commission has 60 days from the time the application was deemed complete in which to make a decision. That 60 days would end next week, so we'd be looking to the commission to make a decision on this application this evening. Okay.
Thank you, Ken. Does anyone have a question for staff? Commissioner Mackin?
Thank you. Ken, the letter from Recology, this is dated March 15th, attachment B. On page G 1.10, it's indicated under on-site rainwater ponding. Item E, the goal will be to have both the building permit and site permit submitted by the end of next week, Friday, 3/22. Has this taken place?
So they wrote this letter before they knew that we would be continuing the item from the March 14th to tonight.
Okay.
So they're waiting until they have actual approval before they submit that.
Okay. Second item, on the map, this is G1 point, I don't know if it's 57 or 17, attachment C. Is it possible to bring that up so everyone can see it? It's the land title survey.
Yeah, can we don't have. If we can get the big. So this one.
Okay, I'll ask the question then. So it's indicated the modular restroom, and it was indicated it would be in the driveway side of the site. Do we have, there's a long driveway. Do we have any idea where on that map this proposed restroom is to be sited?
Yes, we'll see when Julia pulls this up, but there is, if you're looking at your staff report,
There we
this
go.
this is the map that
Right.
we're talking about. So that building on the far left side, the west side, it would be adjacent to that building and on the south side of it, the south edge of it. So if I can go by, whoop, that's okay. I was going to do the pointer here. It doesn't like that, yeah. Oh, is it, it's me doing that? Weird. Okay, the pointers, I guess, had its better days. So if you look behind you on the big screen, my shaky hand at this distance, right down in there. I was playing baseball with the kids tonight, so my body's a little bit shaky right now.
Got the adrenaline going,
The
did
adrenaline. But that edge, basically, that building right there, just south of it, right in there.
Oh, so it's towards the front.
Towards the
of the
front.
property line, the far western side.
Right, since that is closest to where the sewer connection exists.
Okay. And then the front page of the staff report under number 1, elimination of outdoor storage of toter carts. Staff notes there's still a roll-off dumpster remaining as well as some piping unrelated to the proposed use. Do we know if everything's clear out there?
I have not done a follow-up. That may be a good question for the applicant as
Okay.
to the status of those.
Okay, and could you tell me what a roll-off dumpster is?
So
More
this would be a
specifically?
dumpster that would be essentially winched up onto a semi-truck to be hauled, and then it could be rolled off onto a site.
And how would you characterize that different from a debris box?
I think Recology can define them better. I may
Okay.
be mixing up my terms. So
Okay,
my
so
apologies.
then going back to the map, there were debris boxes for receipt of used, unwashed toter carts that had been picked up that were going to be transported to 505 Tunnel. And they were located on the south side of what would be Building 4, the larger of the strange-shaped configuration. Are those still there?
I did not see them when I went out last week. What I saw was whether we call it a dumpster or a big roll-off bin that was up to the west of the large building in the back.
Okay, and since all the activities at the site are to be on the interior and nothing on the exterior, I'm going to still assume there's one or more debris boxes. And again, the applicant, when we get to that, may want to respond, but have you, staff, been advised where any exterior outside debris boxes would be located on this site plan?
No.
Okay. And whether it's one or two, we don't know?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? I have one question. I brought this up before, and regarding any potential liability exposure the city might have. So let's say we grant this and they're continuing their use until they become compliant. My concern is, for example, like the water pooling ponding issue. If a worker were to slip on the water or whatnot and get injured, is there a liability exposure on the city?
No, I posed that question to the city engineer, and he's indicated that he does not see this as a liability issue for the city.
You said you spoke with the engineer?
Did I say engineer?
Yeah.
City attorney.
Okay,
Sorry,
okay, so-
city attorney.
Okay, so he looked into that. I was just concerned just because of, I think probably normally, this is not my area of expertise, but just the fact that the city's on notice that this is an issue and we're allowing it, so we're pretty confident that that's not an issue.
I would say so, yes.
Okay, any questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
Ken. Does the activity continue while they're becoming compliant? Or is the activity stopped until they are compliant?
The activity would continue. So you're granting of the use permit if the commission decides to grant that this evening. would allow them to continue the use at the site, and they would have in their conditions of approval timing for getting these other items corrected. And I should note something like the ponding of the water. This has been it hasn't happened overnight. It would have been a long ongoing thing that even the lumberyard years ago would have had the same ponding. It's not something that happens quickly, but over years of settlement. And with regards to the bathroom or restroom, it's they do have a portable toilet out there, and so they do have facilities to serve the workers. It's not the more permanent facility that the sanitary district would ask for a more fixed use that they see as a long-term use. That was the distinction when I spoke with the gentleman at the district. Was they don't see an issue with using a porta potty for shorter term use, but if it's a use that essentially does not have an end date in sight, then they want to see fixed facilities. They do have a variance process even as well to allow those kind of things, but I don't think the applicant needs to go that way. They'd be doing a fixed, a plumbed in facility with what they proposed.
Any more questions? Okay, we'll open up the public hearing. I see the applicant is here. Would you like to come up here and address the commission?
Good evening, Commissioners and Chairperson. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you tonight about our application. Firstly, I want to address the...
John, if I can,
Sure.
Can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. I apologize. I thought everyone knew who I was. No, I'm just kidding. John Porter, Vice President and Group Manager for Recology in San Francisco. To talk about just how we got to where we are today, I think, Ken, thank you for your summary. This facility was part of a larger project to expand the recycling program in San Francisco. So have you heard this already? I was unable to make the last meeting, but this program increased the recycling capacity for single-family homes in San Francisco by about 50%. It's been the single largest program to increase recycling since mandatory recycling started about a decade ago. It's been a tremendous success, but it hasn't been without its challenges. And one of the challenges that we've had was originally locating a warehouse to store all the toters we would need to replace all the single-family home containers. And originally, we intended to use a third-party warehouse in Brisbane. We entered into negotiations for that warehouse, and unfortunately there were some challenges and was cost prohibitive, and the length and term of the lease would have been a challenge. And also concurrently we're in negotiations with another party to potentially sell this property. Those negotiations fell through. We were in contact with city staff and transparent about everything we had been planning to do, that this was temporary, and if this became a longer term solution for us, that we had every intention of coming in and applying for a permit to, do the right thing. And that's how we got to where we are today. And so I just want to make sure that everyone knows that we really appreciate working with the city staff here in Brisbane. We really value our relationship with the community here, and in no way, shape, or form did we intend to kind of not approach this in the right way. And so I just wanted to make that commitment that everything that the team here is planning to do is to address your concerns, and we will make a commitment to doing that. So thank you for your consideration.
Okay. Does anyone have a question? Commissioner Mackin?
Could you then respond to a couple questions that I posed to Ken Johnson? The debris boxes, where are those to be located?
My understanding is that all of the debris boxes have been removed from the site.
Yes.
And so they're no longer at that facility, and we are no longer planning to stage debris boxes at that site.
So where will the used toter carts that have not been washed, that need to be transported be?
They are being transported directly to the Tunnel Beatty facility north of this location.
Okay. And let's see, let me see if I have another one. No, that was it. Thank you.
Not a problem. Thank you, guys.
Actually, I have one question. I don't know if you can address it or someone else on your staff, but so you are presently using a porta potty. Does that include like a water pump of some sort?
My understanding, I've been there a few times, it has a hand washing station.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Just concerned about it. Okay, thank you.
No, no.
One question.
Of course.
You know, the one kind of uncomfortable thing about this application is that it's all sort of post facto. It's after the violations of, you know, although maybe not, you know, horrendously egregious, there are violations that are been outstanding for quite a while. So my question is, what, if any, internal controls have you put in to you know, prevent this from happening again? Because I don't think the commission really loves to hear applications to fix stuff that's been going on for a long time. We'd rather have folks come in and say, we plan to do this, we'd like to do this, is it okay? That's the normal process. And so what's going to keep this from happening again with the next property or the next use or the next project?
I don't want to speak for city staff right now, but I don't know that we are in violation of anything. Is that correct? Right now we have remedies to address concerns associated with a pending application.
Right, so the use permit would be the remedy. We haven't gone into code enforcement, if that's what's being referred to.
But
right, I mean, as I understand it, code enforcement would have been conceivable or feasible as a remedy, and we've chosen to try to get folks to come inside the tent instead of outside the tent. I get all that. But it's a reversed process in a way. You know, it's inverted, and my question is really, can you guys represent to us that you've sort of fixed the understanding of people inside the company so that the next time around you ask for permission instead of forgiveness?
Yes, absolutely. I can make that commitment. I think we have, and I again don't want to speak for the city staff, but I think we have a good working relationship with the team. We just completed, you know, the installation of a new facility at 515 Tunnel Avenue. Worked with staff very closely on that project. You know, I don't think we had any really violations or any issues with this. This was, as I mentioned, and that's kind of why I started this. This was not our intention to kind of use this facility as a long-term solution. And unfortunately, you know, we kept saying, okay, we're going to move to this other location. We'll use this alternative. And those things just fell through. If your question is, are we going to be forthright and transparent moving forward and operate to the highest standard, I can assure you that'll be the case. But it was not our intention to be in violation or operate a facility that doesn't meet our standards.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else?
I have a question.
Commissioner Patel?
So what I heard you say was before you actually used this site for short-term storage, you had actually contacted city staff and told them that you were going to do that?
We meet regularly with city staff to kind of talk about what we're doing and what programs are outstanding, what our future plans are, just because we want to be a good neighbor. And we had talked about the many things that we were working on potentially with this facility, which is potential sale, you know, potential temporary use, but those things were not determined.
And so was it your understanding that city staff had told you or somewhat approved the use that you were currently using it for?
Not explicitly, no. No.
Okay.
Any other questions? No? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, let's have our discussion. Does anyone want to start? Commissioner Mackin?
Attempting to not be punitive about this. I have a problem that the applicant was not forthcoming with this. If they'd been in conversation with the city, they were somehow aware the use permit was essential for use of the site, but I'm trying to move ahead. So my concerns are that it's not grading, it's the correcting of the water pooling in the back part of the property and also the restroom, that it move ahead. I'm satisfied with the materials provided that show the modular company and the plans to secure that. It's very comprehensive. So my additional concern, having observed the middle building in use where the application was submitted for only the rear building, I would like the commission to consider an additional condition added to the conditions of approval, and that condition would be worded something to the effect, so it's very explicit, that the use permit is only for the easternmost building, the 35,000 square foot warehouse, and use of the two westernmost buildings close to Tunnel Avenue is not covered under this permit.
I would agree too. And I think in what Recology submitted at G.1.11, they do acknowledge that those two buildings would not be used. So I just think that we overlooked putting it in the conditions of approval. So staff, can we put that in there?
Certainly, we can add that condition of approval. So if I can restate it, the use permit is only for the easternmost buildings, the 3,500 or 35,000, excuse me, square foot buildings, and use of the western buildings are not included.
Correct. Okay. Does anyone else have a comment or suggestion?
Madam Chair, if I may.
Sure.
I'd like to hear discussion about the time frame for completion of the two projects from my fellow commissioners. The staff report indicated 90 days with possibility of 60.
Are you concerned that what they're intending to execute on won't get done in the 90 days, or are you wanting to provide a shorter timeline to try and accelerate the scheduling of the work? Is that?
Neither. I'd like
Okay.
your comments, your opinions on which you feel is appropriate.
I, for one, don't feel strongly either way about 60 versus 90. I would rather that get done, efficiently and correctly and really well done and thought out. And these aren't rocket science things. They're, paving and pothole filling and restroom building. But I don't see much difference between the 60 and the 90 personally. As long as it is, it's a bright line and, got to get it done. And if it's not done, then they haven't met the conditions, period.
Any other comments?
No. I just think, ideally it would have already been done. Secondarily, I do understand, when you're grading, it's probably not the best condition when it's raining, and dealing with drainage stuff when it's raining is probably not the best. So I'm sympathetic, but the only thing that really bothered me about this whole situation when I was first reviewing it is that it seemed as though it was like, well, we did this thing and we're doing it, and now we're going to ask for a permit, but we don't want code enforcement, so we're going to continue it, and we're going to fix all these problems, and then they're not fixed, and now there's another 90 days to fix it. So, but then we either have to prove it or deny it by this Friday. So now there's like this time pressure on us to, where we have to do it rather than say, let's continue it for 90 days and see if they fix it. Let's see if they put the grading in there.
So that's where I would say, and that's a valid comment, Commissioner. I'd say, with all due respect, if you could execute this in 60 days or less, assuming we have the right weather conditions, assuming that you are going to follow all, applicable labor laws, right? Worker safety is paramount, right? We don't want to create a condition where they're trying to accelerate the work, right? I don't think that's unreasonable, yet if the regular time frame is a 90-day time frame, are we presenting some unforeseeable hardship in being able to execute the work that is expected to be executed upon?
Right. I mean, I feel like the answer is going to be like it's a complaint-based system. So if it's not done in 90 days, then someone has to go over there and check it out and then complain, and then right. So it's like
Right.
So it's like the onus is back on the city or people of the city of Brisbane to like go back and check. Right?
And I'm greatly concerned also just about staff time, about your time. I mean, you guys are executing your business. I mean, I can look at this a lot of different angles. I think every comment that both Commissioner Mackin and all of us are bringing to the table, I think is all valid. I can also see where you guys are operating your business, trying to adapt and everything that is going on with respect to the program in San Francisco. And it seems like, based upon you sharing the information, that things were moving very fast. There were potential variables. It seems like that the property was being used in a way that wasn't exactly following the required, following the law, right, the permits and so forth. But it was more so, it was, I guess what I'm trying to say is it seems to me that it was not the intent to break the law, okay? That they were just trying to get the work done, and granted, we've identified some shortcomings. To me, it seems like we've got a plan, right? We've got a plan. Do we want to say, let's get it done in 60 days? I think that's in front of us, because I can go that route if that's a reasonable route to get it done in 60 days, and then we're creating a little bit more sense of urgency to get it done versus just waiting the 90 days, because time is money, right? And we got to, I think it's important to be concerned of, putting more work on staff and getting this to a point where we feel comfortable that we've addressed all the concerns, the environmental concerns, the worker safety concerns, et cetera, right? So I'd be favorable towards a shorter timeline.
Can you explain where the 90 days comes from?
This was a time frame that staff came up with in the initial conditions of approval. We were looking at something that was pretty aggressive, but also seemed like a reasonable enough amount of time to get the tasks done. The 60 days that Commissioner Mackin refers to, I think it has to do with the correspondence that I had directly. I was looking in here, did I say 60 days in here? And I think that was something that a question that was posed, and I responded, I think so, but I think the question goes to the applicant if they think that's reasonable. One thing that comes to mind is we've had a very wet year, thankfully, in a lot of ways, but I'm not sure how that might, if we shorten it to 60, we're already about 40 out, or 44 out, I guess, from when we first heard the matter. But now it'd be a little bit more compressed because they'd be applying for the permits and getting their contractor to get the work done. And so it might be a question that you want to pose to the applicant as to whether they think that's an issue. I'll add, given my conversation with Bayshore Sanitary, the fact that they have a portable toilet that's working there now, we're coming into the dry season, so I'm not sure that pushing it to 60 really gets us that much benefit. So if you wanted a bright line, I would probably err on the side of giving them 90 and let's say, make that a bright line. But that's really up to the commission to decide. And if you want to hear from the applicant, you may want to ask them that question.
Can I just, really quickly, you said we're 40 into it. What does that mean? When you said we're 40 into it, what does that mean?
So you the commission first heard the application on February 14th.
Right.
And we continued it for a month, and then we continued it for another 2 weeks. So
Right.
by my math, it's about 44 days, but
Sorry, so
we had February, which is a short month, so anyhow, somewhere in there.
so 40 days as it applies to the 90, so it's not another 90 days, it's another 50 days.
I would take it as 90 days from the effective date. That's how the conditions are worded,
Okay.
90 days from the effective date of the permit. So if you want to adjust that, that'd be the way to word it.
Do you guys have a contractor?
Tim Caulfield, project manager with Ecology. We state 90 days effective from the use permit. I can't speak for the city staff, but the permitting process is undetermined. So it would be, I would say, either 60 or 90 days from either building or grading permit approval, so that we can guarantee procurement of materials and crews. Because we don't want to order a facility if we're not going to get the building permit, and we don't want to basically hire crews if we're not going to be able to grade. So the permits are kind of the time tracker on this. The use permit's one element, but we need the use permit to actually submit building and grading permits.
Have you identified crews already that are able to complete the work once you get the permits?
We have a crew that just did the 515 tunnel project. I feel fairly certain I can get them to do it. They worked efficiently. I think I'd have to verify. I can't speak for them until we actually sign a contract with them, but yes, I think I can get them out there right away after we get the permit. And the modular building, if we get approval, I can submit, and usually it's a 2 to 3 week waiting period before they actually arrive, set the unit and actually tie down the structure, and then we'd have to hire a plumber, electrician to adjoin to the existing utilities above grade. So I think 90 days would be sufficient. 60 days would be cutting it close, just based on unknowns on, I did hold the bathroom unit. They were going to hold it until I sign the lease, but I don't want to sign the lease until I actually have a permit in hand. So,
Commissioner Gomez?
Yeah, just for a quick point, and thank you very much for the explanation. Just a quick point of clarity, transition time or lag time between use permit approval and building permit approval. So more of a question towards
Right.
Ken. Is that something
Yeah,
that
so-
we synchronize fairly?
Right, so the city will not issue a building permit for a use that has not been approved.
Right, exactly.
So the use permit does come first.
Right, but the
and-
queue as far as,
And then, so there's a 6-day appeal period.
okay.
So that puts us to the end of next week
Got it.
before somebody could appeal this potentially to city council. So I would imagine they might submit right after that.
You got it.
And then standard turnaround for plan check review is 3 weeks.
Okay. No, thank you for that.
If there are comments, which there usually are, then they go back to the applicant. They respond back, and it's another 3 weeks.
So that could
60
take
days,
a
right?
month.
So yeah, that permit
Kind of work
period
through that
time,
process, yeah.
granted, these are pretty limited in scope. You've got a grading permit with the city engineer, and then you got the building permit. Pretty limited in scope, so I would expect to go pretty fast, but there is a process that
Understand.
has to happen.
I don't want to be unreasonable, so I was just saying 60 days in an effort to kind of create a sense of urgency, but with full respect to, you know, whether it's long lead time in your definition or relatively short lead time, it does seem like 90 days is more appropriate. After kind of just hearing that time scale and thinking about procurement of once you have permits, procurement, getting your crews lined up, being able to execute on the job, potential delays, you know, with plumber, electrician. I mean, who knows? I think 90 days is reasonable. So that's where I'm standing right now.
Commissioner Gooding?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I suspect the applicant has heard loud and clear that the commission would love the next use permit application to occur before the use occurs, and I suspect they will. If shortening the compliance period from 90 to 60, affects a crunch on our own staff, that's really not, I think we're throwing the baby out with the bathwater or something like that. So I'm okay with 90, but let's police it to make sure it really does occur and this use actually gets done the right way.
Is there a way we can get something on calendar in 90 days to see where we are with this process? I know we have to either approve it or deny it today. Having said that, assuming we approve it, is there something that we can do so that we can get a report as to what's happened in 90 days?
Staff could report. I hesitate to, because it wouldn't be a application item at that point. But if I can provide an update at some point out there as to when this is an item, I guess, initiated by staff to let you know that yes, it's been completed.
Can I ask a
But
question?
in terms of, it wouldn't be a discussion item, and definitely would be it'll stay on my radar until this is done and even continuing on.
Yeah, with all respect, I don't think it's necessarily, I don't know if the correct word is germane to kind of us being the impetus for the enforcement, right? I mean, that's really upon city staff with all respect to their skills and expertise, right? I trust their ability to ensure that what we approve, if we are to approve what is being proposed, that it is fully within their grasp to make sure that the law is being followed in the future, right?
I guess the concern,
that's just my thoughts on it.
right?
I don't know.
I mean, I'm not asking them to enforce or to be police of this project, but it seems as though there's a concern that the property was being used without a permit already, and that the use permit hadn't been applied for already, and that there's some suggestion that the applicant was in communication with city staff already, and that even with that sort of communication, there was a breakdown in communication where they didn't know that they needed a use permit, or they didn't apply for a use permit, or they didn't tell the city, or the city didn't care, one or the other, I don't know. So amongst all of that, it seems as though if in 90 days we could get a report, see if what's gone on, I don't think it's completely inappropriate. I'm not asking them to police it.
Okay.
Commissioner Gooding?
Yeah, one last question about the mechanics of this for Ken, because I honestly, I confess I don't know. This is sort of it's new to me, but not a novel occurrence, I'm sure. If we approve the use permit tonight with a condition that certain things occur within 90 days, and they don't, is it simply ministerial for you to then deny or disapprove the permit, or do we have to hear it again?
It would come back to you.
Yeah.
I would not expect that, though. I mean, I think
I'm
you
not-
have at this point an applicant who is very motivated to get this done.
I'm not making any
And-
assumptions or casting any aspersions.
so-
I was just asking about process.
Right, yeah, the process would be essentially that it if they are not getting it done, we bring this back for revocation procedure through the Planning Commission, which is spelled out through the municipal code. So there's a specific process to revoke it.
Thank you, yeah. It would be really unfortunate to hear this again.
I'm with you.
Okay, so we're done discussing. So I think we're pretty much all in agreement that the 90 days would be appropriate. Okay. So can I have a motion that we approve the use permit with the additional condition that the two westernmost buildings not be included in the use?
So moved.
All in favor? May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, approves. Thank you. Next item of business is items initiated by staff.
Yes, we have a few items. Bear with me while I switch my paperwork to remind me what to tell you about. So first we had as I think a few of you might have actually been able to make it, we had the community conversation up at Mission Blue last week, and I think that went very well. It was a full house there, and so that was great. I think it was a very positive evening. The next is coming up on Saturday, May 4th. So if you want to join in on that, whether you made the first one or not, you're by all means welcome to come again to that. So that's a Saturday one.
Same location?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Do we have a time?
do we have a time?
We don't, but we'll send you the information as soon as it's available.
The thing I show here is late afternoon, not a very specific time, but
High tea.
pardon me?
High tea.
High tea, yes.
Make sure
May get tea there. And then there was an announcement that came out that we have a benchmarking ordinance that's going to be in the process, and so there was an announcement on that. If you individually wanted to participate in that, we can send out that announcement to sign up. It's essentially benchmarking energy and water and measuring and tracking. So I don't know the details of that ordinance. It's actually being spearheaded through the what is OSEC.
Okay. Is that being based on like what San Francisco does or San Jose, some other bigger municipalities?
I think the intent behind the ordinance is similar to those. There's a model ordinance I know they're using kind of as a template. And so this workshop is, I think, we've been told by Public Works staff, it's geared towards like stakeholders, so whether that's property owners, professionals in the field, they're really trying to make something that's workable for, the people that are actually in the buildings, and that will be retrofitting buildings.
So that's
I'm very, very familiar with it because of
Right.
activities in San Francisco.
right.
Yeah.
So we thought that would be an item of interest to know about.
You sent an email about that?
Yeah,
can.
no, we can if you'd like, or it's on the website. So that is coming up on Tuesday afternoon, April 9th.
That's,
Uh-huh.
2 weeks out. Okay.
And then there's a training coming up on April 30th. I think a couple have already signed up, and so that's great. And if more of you want to, that'd be terrific.
I've heard they're serving dinner.
What was the subject on that? I might have missed that.
It's a planning commissioner training that 21 Elements is sponsoring. They're the county-wide consortium.
Right.
So,
Yeah,
I
okay.
think
This
it's
is-
more about housing predominantly, I think.
yeah, we'll resend the email announcement so you
And
can see.
when is like the deadline we should tell you? Is there
I think they'll accept RSVPs fairly close to the date. So why don't we resend the email and they'll refresh that for you guys who haven't signed up yet.
And last had to do with the city council on cannabis. And Julia, would you like to speak to that one?
Sure. So the council has an ad hoc subcommittee on cannabis issues, and that subcommittee met a couple weeks ago and basically aired out a couple ideas. One being adopting a tax structure, and the other being exploring the idea of allowing a storefront retail cannabis use. So, as you know, currently we don't allow storefront uses. So at the subcommittee meeting, they were kind of fleshing out if the city was interested in allowing it, what kind of parameters would we want. So they highlighted a couple things, capping, if it's something they wanted to allow, capping the actual number of businesses, which a lot of cities who have allowed storefront businesses have done. They've put it at no more than 2 in the city or no more than 1 per zoning district or whatever. There's a variety of ways people or other cities have limited it. So following up on that subcommittee discussion, now we're scheduled for next Thursday's council meeting we have a staff report summarizing the subcommittee's discussion and kind of putting it to council now, to the full council, to share with the subcommittee their discussion and kind of feel out where the discussion goes. If the council does end up, wanting to pursue amending the land use regulations, that's obviously something that would then come back to you all to look at an actual ordinance.
Just a quick question around this. Would that be constructed in a way where essentially if it hypothetically, if it were allowed in town and let's say it was 1 storefront business, could it potentially be only for that use, or could it be like a coffee cannabis shop or something like that? Or is that even being discussed?
So I think that's something that's up for discussion.
Oh, okay.
The main component that we would have to change our land use regulations to accommodate would be the fact that it was a retail space specifically selling cannabis products to the consumer, whether that's cannabis products in a nice little container behind a glass case, or if that's cannabis products in a cup of tea. I think that's something that will be discussed at council level.
Do we know which council members are on the subcommittee?
Yeah, that's public information. I think all the subcommittee meetings are public. It's Mayor Davis and Councilmember O'Connell.
Okay, so just a tidbit for anyone who didn't hear. Today, I heard on the radio news that Walgreens has announced they are going to sell cannabinoids in their stores, in the pharmacy,
Wow.
over the counter.
Interesting. Okay.
How can they do that? It's federal law, right? Or is it still against it?
Legal in California.
Huh. Okay. Does staff have any idea when that issue might come before the commission? Like, are we looking this
It
year?
really depends on the council's discussion on Thursday.
Okay.
So like I said, the subcommittee's had this discussion. Now they're going to present their discussion to their council members, and we don't know what the outcome will be.
Okay. Thank you. Now we have items initiated by the commission. Any items? No? Okay, then can I have a motion that we adjourn until our next meeting of Thursday, April 11th, 2019?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.